Hey everyone, in this video I want to talk to you about why alphas do not exist, specifically the whole concept of alpha males. Now this video may be a bit triggering for guys who believe they're alphas or for guys who buy into the alpha theory as an excuse for why they should give up on dating, but regardless, I'm going to give you some information here on why this is the case. So the first thing here, the guy who actually created alpha theory involving wolves, David Mech, he actually turned out to be wrong, and he even acknowledged this himself later on. I think it was like 20 or so years after he published his original research, he then came out saying, hey, you know what? I was actually wrong, because he theorized alpha theory based on looking at domestic wolves and the way they interacted with each other. But that didn't hold up in the wild, because in the wild, alphas aren't a thing. The way wolves operate is in family units. You have usually the mother and the father, and they're considered the alphas. They're the head of their wolf pack. That's how it works. It's based on basically maturity for the most part. The oldest members of the pack are usually the ones leading it. That doesn't mean the alpha, the strongest, is the top of the pack. No, it's the father and the mother who basically created the pack. It's their offspring who are the members of it. So that right there kind of shows that the whole basis of this theory, where it originated from, doesn't even hold up, because the researcher David Mech even found out that he was wrong later on, and he even admits it. So that right there is your first piece of proof. But another one is that quite often for us humans, alpha theory doesn't hold up either, because this whole concept of the alpha male isn't actually men who are truly at the top of social hierarchies. Social hierarchies do pretty much exist to some extent with humans, we know that, but there are so many of them that even trying to argue who's the best in terms of that kind of falls flat depending on what angle you're looking at it from. Because there are tons of hierarchies. There are hierarchies of attraction, people who are the most attractive physically, but that's just one aspect of it. Then there are hierarchies for people who have the best personalities, people who are the richest, people who have the most power. So if you're trying to divide everyone into those hierarchies, you need to define what the hell you're talking about, because there's so many different ones that you can't quite say objectively that specific people are better than everyone else, because they may only be better on one of those realms. They may be the richest, they may be the most powerful, but then what about the most attractive people or the people with the best personalities? So there's so many things out there that there's a lot of nuance here, pretty much. But going back to the concept of alpha males and humans, one of the problems here is that a lot of the conventionally alpha male stereotypes for humans aren't alphas because they're like leaders of humans. They're considered alphas because they basically subscribe to conventional roles, or rules even, should I say, for what is considered masculine by society. These men aren't leaders, they're just guys who are masculine, or so they seem, right? They're the loudest, they're usually the strongest, most fit, guys who work out, that sort of thing. Most boisterous dudes who are willing to fight others, but all that means is they're subscribing to these ideas of masculinity in society, which can often be unhealthy forms of it. So it doesn't mean that they're better than anyone. And quite often these guys who are considered alpha males by others, or God forbid even guys who label themselves as alpha males, which that's cringeworthy on its own, but quite often these guys aren't nearly as good at getting women as you may believe, and even the ones who can get women aren't good at keeping them. They can't maintain long-term relationships, so they fail in that regard. And also, a lot of these men aren't able to get the best women, meaning women who actually make for great partners, for great wives, women who would be great mothers. Alpha males, going along society's whole idea of what makes an alpha, these guys can't get the best women because the best women see right through them and they know that they're not good partners. So if you really want to drill it down, you could argue that the true alpha males, which, like I said, there isn't really a thing, but the true leaders among men, these are guys who are actually more so just full of integrity, and they're charismatic, they're usually intelligent, they have great people skills, they care a lot about the people that are important to them, they're usually honest and authentic. Basically, these are guys who just have the courage to be themselves 24/7. They don't really care what people think of them, but they're not a-holes. they're kind. They choose to be kind because they know that it's the right thing to do and they don't want to increase the suffering in the world. These are usually the best men. These are the men that other men want to follow. Guys who are great leaders but are also kind. They're able to dish out punishment when it's warranted, but they don't overdo it. And then they're going to reward people when they're actually doing a good job. They recognize others. They're inspiring. Think about like men like Jocko Willink or even Jordan Peterson to some extent, although he's not quite the full package, but he has some merit along this lines as well. Or even I like to think of Zan Perrione as a great example of this. They're just guys who are great men. They're not necessarily the strongest, the biggest, the loudest, the most alpha, but they are people that other men can look up to. So yeah, that's my whole idea of what a true alpha male is. And I don't even like to use that term because, yeah, that theory is wrong. I like to call them more extraordinary gentlemen because they're basically like close to the epitome of what every man should aspire to just be an overall great guy. And these guys can actually get women and keep them. And they are even good at being able to discern when a woman is a great partner for them. They don't just go after any random woman because she's attractive, which is what the more conventional alphas do. They'll go after a woman who's got like fake everything, plastic surgery up the wazoo, and just because she outwardly looks good, which in my opinion, plastic surgery does not look good, but yeah, just because she looks outwardly hot, these guys will go for her immediately. But the best men tend to go for beautiful women, and there is a difference between hot and beautiful. Hot women usually only have their looks to offer, and men know exactly what to do with them. But then beautiful women, they're women who have a whole package going for them. They're beautiful on the outside, but also their personality is beautiful, and they're caring and they're inspiring to men. Beautiful women are the type of women that men are willing to die for. Men aren't necessarily willing to die for hot women because, I hope you understand what I'm getting at. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of what I wanted to talk about here, because you just have so many guys buy into these ideas, and well, one, the science doesn't even hold up with them. Like I said, there are social hierarchies in humans to some extent, but even then, there's so many of them that you can't quite make an objective hierarchy of who's the best. Like even if you were to say the US president, Joe Biden, is like the most powerful person in the world, which I wouldn't even argue that, but if you were to say that, right, let's see. He's certainly not the most attractive. He's certainly not the richest because he's not even a billionaire. And he certainly doesn't have the best personality. So is he really the best guy in the world just because he's the president of the US? No, probably not. So there you go. Like, you can't quite do that. Things don't work in that way. Life is just way more nuanced. There's no black or white. It's very much gray. So that's pretty much my whole point with this video. Try not to subscribe to this whole idea of what an alpha is. And actually, before I close it, I just remembered one important thing. Quite often, the men who come off alpha or pretend to be alpha or even label themselves alpha, they're incredibly insecure. That's why they're so boisterous and loud, and why they go to the gym to constantly try to be as big as possible. They're usually not doing it for themselves. They're doing it because of insecurities. They want to be the biggest guy in the room. They believe that women are attracted to muscles, which they are to some extent, but guys, work out for yourselves, not for women. And they're basically just doing things for all the wrong reasons. It's all about appearances. They want to appear to be an alpha. But the true extraordinary gentleman that using the term that I like to say for this, they don't care about any labels people throw on them. They don't care if people think they're alpha or beta or what's the newest one, sigma. They don't care about any of that. They just don't, because they don't subscribe to any of those stupid boxes that people put others in. They don't care, and that's yet another reason what makes them extraordinary, because they aren't being the way they are for others. They're just doing it because they know that it's right. So if you meet someone who is like loud and boisterous and a big guy and trying to start fights and all that, just remember these people are insecure, so don't think they're better than you. I mean, it'll be very rare that they are unless you haven't worked on yourself a lot. So just don't play that game. Don't buy into those mentalities. Most alphas are deeply insecure men, and that's exactly why, remember I said earlier, these guys usually can't maintain long-term relationships and they can't attract the best women out there. That's why they're too insecure. And the best women can see right through them. They can see that when they meet them. So there you go. Just another little thing that I wanted to add in there because I somehow almost missed it. I wasn't really looking at my note card here when talking or when going through this video, but normally I do. Just started getting on a roll, so I kind of just skipped through it, but it looks like, yeah, I covered everything. So I'll end the video here, but I truly hope you enjoyed this one. If you like content like this, be sure to subscribe for more. Otherwise, like the video and leave a comment. That's the easiest way you can help me out and engage with that algorithm. Comment doesn't have to relate to the video at all, so just say whatever you want. Or here's the thing, tell me a funny story about a time where you were near a guy who seemed like an alpha and just kind of turned out to not be the case. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Arrivederci!